Welcome to the Marshall Pruitt Podcast and your weekend IndyCar listener Q&A. Getting ready to head out here soon to good old Palm Springs, California. Flying in for Thermal Club, the inaugural Thermal Club IndyCar Grand Prix. Is this going to be the one and only? Possibly. Keep hearing this might be one and done in terms of a actual points-paying motor race, but nonetheless, getting ready to head out here, go and play IndyCar. A little bit of a break until we get to Long Beach, middle of April, 50th anniversary of the event. IndyCar on Sunday, IMSA on Saturday. Awesome vintage sessions going on there, celebrating the cars that have made this event what it is over the last 50 years. So, yeah, fun times ahead here, y'all. Just got back from Sebring. Appreciate everybody's understanding. Had to dive out on doing last week's show. You might hear I'm still a bit sick. I can tell you, I feel a lot better, but I'm still completely wiped out. So 5 or 6 days in the sun in Sebring was definitely a good thing. Saw a lot of friends there. IndyCar side, sports car side, you name it. New IndyCar president Doug Bowles was there, taking in a lot of things. So just a, man, I'm telling you, if you haven't been to the 12 hours of Sebring, just go. You think of the Indy 500 as a bucket list. Long Beach, maybe. Road America for sure. Just saying, get to the 12 hours of Sebring at least once in your life. It is insane. So anyways, appreciate y'all. Appreciate give me the week off, and hopefully I'll be rid of whatever this icky thing is soon. I definitely win Worst Husband of the Year award because despite taking all the precautions as possible, managed to pass this on to my wife. So she's dealing with it right now. So yeah, someone want to buy me a doghouse so I can sleep in it, because that's where I deserve to be. Thanks again for all the questions you sent in to our pal Jerry Sudduth, who puts them together for us. Jerry says we have, about 1,000 words worth of questions, 20 questions or so themselves. Definitely going to try and get the show done here in an hour or less, just because, yeah, I still got a lot to knock out here before hopping on a good old aeroplane. So with all that said, why don't we say a big thank you, as always, to our friends at the Justice Brothers, makers of amazing automotive chemicals and lubricants. Friends at TorontoMotorsports.com, purveyors of modern racing memorabilia. Lots of great stuff there. And then our friends at the Sports Car Championship Canada, presented by Michelin. Pay them a visit at felmotorsports.com, felmotorsports.com. Want to go race in Canada? Do some pretty cool stuff, whether it's TCR, GT4, Radical Cup, or just go see some cool races there north of the border. felmotorsports.com, Sports Car Championship Canada, really good friends. And then finally our own, thepruittstore.com, a little bit of older racing memorabilia. Gotta really say a huge thanks to so many of you who recently, I guess frankly, since just started sharing the fact that it exists and promoting it a little bit, been so many of you have been truly so kind to go and take home a number of the things that I've collected over the years. Also a lot of show stickers, big bumper sticker size things, and whatnot. So huge thanks to y'all. And if you get a chance, thepruittstore.com, taking all those proceeds, putting it towards a house fund, because got to buy us a house and move into something proper here by the end of the year. So, all right, let's get rolling with your show. And who indeed opens it up? Oh boy, it's a good one. It's a good one. Our pal Ken Anderson, IndyCar Ken. Hoping to see you this weekend. As I'm sure you'll talk about it, well, what are you expecting at Thermal? Pit stops, tire dig, points, this whole ball game this year at Thermal. Unfortunately, it sounds like this might be the last year, and as much as I love the venue, Thermal was not built for public enjoyment. Story that I'm hoping to have done here soon, Ken, preferably before the weekend. What are we thinking we're going to be staring at for race strategery? So this track, as I mentioned, it is the Coachella Valley Cheese Grater. It just rips up tires really quickly. And so IndyCar has said, hey, for this event, we're going to skip this new tire allocation formula for this event. they're also going to do at the Indy Road Course. And we're going to give you 6 primaries, 4 alternates. The softer alternate's the one obviously more prone to being shredded faster. This is the first time doing a race, obviously, but a thing of any real length at Thermal. So last year we had the heat races, 10, 12 laps, whatever it was. We had the final, which I think was 10 laps, and a competition caution / pit stop, make some adjustments to tire pressures and otherwise send the cars back out. 65 laps. What is this going to translate into stint length wise? Yeah, could probably look to Road America for a bit of guidance there. 3.067 miles is the measured distance for the 17 turn configuration at Thermal. So it's a long lap, just like Road America. So what are we staring at for lap wise between pit stops? Again, it's going to largely be tire driven, Ken, but 3 stopper, I'm thinking. Who knows? Could be 4, but I'm looking at who is going to nail their setups on both primary and alternates, and then do the best job of preserving them. That's the one main takeaway we got from last year. Okay, we gotta really baby these tires. Primaries is what we used last year, by the way. There's 9 sets of primaries allocated for the entire event, no alternates. So we've never seen what the soft tire option looks like there. We know that Firestone tells us the primary, they're going a little bit harder on those, so those should hopefully be a bit more long-lasting. But what I'm expecting is this. The drivers who can make speed without having to put a ton of energy into the tires. What does that mean? A lot of oversteer, a lot of understeer, really have to lean super hard on the tires to make performance. For the drivers who don't need to really beat the heck out of their cars to produce speed, those are the ones we're looking for to get to victory lane. Alex Palou put on a masterclass last year. Without question, he is P1 on the folks we expect to make lots of speed without wearing out their tires. His teammate Scott Dixon is another one for sure we need to look at. Our guy Pato Ward, he used to be one of the worst at this, right? He'd just wear the car out, do crazy speed, it was so cool, etc., etc. He's learned a lot there, so I don't expect that to be the case so much. Colton Herta stands out. Frankly, all of the Andretti drivers stand out. Christian Lundgaard is someone I'd keep my eye on for sure. Move on down to the Penske's, and they're all very capable of doing that. The cerebral drivers, not the full animalistic maximum attack for every lap of the race, but the ones who realize I got to give up a little bit each lap, but that's going to give me, Ken, the best average laps over the 15, 20, however many lap stint. To drivers thinking that way, who I believe we're going to see end up on the podium. Hopefully a much larger, more impressive podium than the karting podium from last year. But that's what I'm looking for. That's what everybody I've spoken with is looking for. Interviewed Palou, Pato, Tim Cindric so far on this from Strategery side. Hopefully going to talk to Mike Hull here as well. Just trying to get thoughts from drivers. Really good drivers, really good strategists, and most of them are saying the same thing. We are going to have to be super smart in how we go about our tire strategy, what we use and when, and then our drivers are going to have to be a bigger influence on not over-consuming those tires too soon in a stint. And if we can do that, and the setups are good, we should be in good shape. So what I'm looking for, this is going to be a thinking entries event to win. There's some, I think of like a Barber, I think of a Mid-Ohio, I think of Road America, and maybe some of the short ovals as well, where it is truly go like hell until you see the checkered flag. I don't expect this race to be like that. So, would love to be wrong, but I don't think this is one where we're going to see animals just beating the heck out of the cars and being rewarded for it. I want to go to Eric Franklin. I know Andrew Miller, you have something similar. He said, given the expected track surface, is it possible that the tire degradation might lead to some interesting rising and falling in the field on race day? Without a doubt, Eric. That's one of the, and our boy Rocky is deciding to meow and join in. How you doing, Pop? This is certainly going to be a component of this. And I love this stuff. The anarchy side, the unexpected side. This is something that I live for. So without a doubt, name the team where they're always running at or near the front. You can expect at least one driver from most of those front running teams to have a miserable stint or a miserable day altogether. So is it possible for someone to absolutely ace qualifying and then with setup changes and there's that 20-ish minute warm-up Sunday morning go in a wrong direction and plummet immediately at the start, or the exact opposite, have a terrible qualifying and move forward? Yes. Maybe the one overarching note that I didn't mention in the response to Ken's question, but it certainly applies here, Eric, is last year, if we're looking at the all-star race, air quote race, the first 10 laps, the driver who was the best in terms of managing tires was our guy Pelot, who ended up winning the race. The delta, the difference between his fastest lap and slowest lap was about 3 seconds. Pretty much everybody else, those who are closest directly behind him, their delta was something like 5 seconds. Now, did the tires truly fall off by 5 seconds in 10 laps? No, they didn't. And that's the point here, driving back to the cerebral approach, not maximizing every single lap in terms of lap time. This was an intentional thing where teams said, okay, we know we're going to be limited in how long these tires are going to live across this 20-lap thing, even with this intermission where we can tweak tire pressures. And so you had drivers intentionally pulling back multiple seconds per lap in the first half of the All-Star race to ensure that those tires still had enough life to perform in the second half. Pelot, again, only had to decrease his pace by about 3 seconds a lap, 2 seconds better than just about everybody chasing him, because that's how well his car was working and how well he was managing his tires. But the big point here is everybody realized, except for those who dove in early. I think Colton Herta was one of them, was like, well, the heck with this. We're going to try some fun and different stuff. The big point here was, yeah, we're driving to a lap time compared to, the car is working at 99.9% of its peak speed per lap. So this is the part that's going to be so interesting to watch, Eric. We expect everybody, think of it as the tire equivalent of fuel saving, right? Instead of driving to a fuel number, we're driving to a lap time number to preserve tires for the entire stint. But within there, just like we saw Pelot last year, being able to run at a faster, slower pace, I think we could indeed see some who didn't have great qualifying get much better with the setup direction for the race and allow them to capitalize on some others. And for sure, we're going to have some folks who are just saying, get me out of here. I hate this place. Come on. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I feel bad for those who are going to have bad days, but yeah, otherwise it's just folks going in a unbroken line for an hour and a half, hour 45, and we get another snoozer. So crossing fingers and everything else I can to make sure that we do indeed have a significant number of risers and fallers. Ryan Terpstra says, it feels like the Marshank Racing Team hosting 500 troops and first responders this weekend. It hits a bit different since it's such an exclusive event. That was a nice thing to read. What are your thoughts? I'm right there with you, Ryan. The timing was also not coincidental. We have a team that likes to do a lot of really cool things. They also realize that here at Thermal, where there's effectively nobody going to be there for the most part, realize the track has said they've sold almost all the 5,000 tickets that they have set aside for this, but it's not going to be massively attended. It is going to feel a lot more like a private event. There's not much going on, meaning with the absence of a large crowd and big on-site activation by major sponsors, manufacturers, and partners, and signage everywhere, and the feeling like a Long Beach, a St. Pete, wherever, where it's like, hey, a festival with energy, and it's alive, and there's music. That's not what Thermal is. And so knowing that it doesn't have much in the way of other attractions or bells and whistles, back in, I think, January, Jim Meyer told me about this plan, this thought of like, hey, Thermal's a bit of an outlier. Why don't we try and do something special, since there's not a lot else happening that is special, and invite 500 military members, ex-military members. They're looking for an organization to partner with. They've done that with Folds of Honor, great nonprofit, takes the proceeds from their fundraising, puts those into scholarships for children and whatnot of service members. This is just a great idea. At a place, to your exact point, where it is very exclusive. So these 500 guests are going to be treated to the best of everything. So VIP hospitality, catered this, catered that, inside the team, get to really dive in and enjoy. I'd say the venue also plays well to this, Ryan, because the paddock is a big old empty space. Where the heck would you fit 500 people? It's a place that can accommodate bringing a large number of folks into a team under their tent to look around, not all at once. Tent's not going to hold 500 people, but it can definitely hold a lot and cycle folks through. Trying to do that at a name the other event would by no means be as easy. So the place, size-wise and emptiness-wise, perfect for this. And knowing that it is this upper echelon, upper tier event where the general admission tickets are $475. This is something where hopefully all the folks here associated through Folds of Honor come away feeling loved and respected, and getting to see IndyCar in a very different way than maybe they ever have. So huge appreciation for the Meyershank Racing team. And they're by no means the only IndyCar team that goes really hard at honoring military. Rahal Letterman Lanigan does for sure. Just saw Stingray Robb announcing new sponsorship / partnership, training service dogs and such. And there are other teams that do big things to support the military as well. So MSR by no means the only one, but at least for Thermal, they're the ones taking the lead. Hey, our pal at 5 skid marks, and also James Lau, you've asked something similar. So do you think having a race with limited spectators on a private race resort like Thermal is good for IndyCar, even if it fills the calendar? Goes on to say, my opinion, it's like if the NBA took money from a billionaire to have a game in their backyard gym. Makes IndyCar look smaller and less popular. You're on to the exact thing that I've been saying for many years about IndyCar. It applies to IMSA. It applies to any racing series that is trying to level up, grow, and become more than what it is. We know in IndyCar's case, once upon a time, probably before many of you were alive and or were fans, it was the biggest racing series in the country. NASCAR was a solid number 2, not even close. That's changed. IndyCar's fallen in NASCAR's shadow. It's been progressively coming out of that shadow, but there's still a decent sized shadow it sits within. IMSA, similar thing, raging popularity in the 80s, early 90s and such. It's been clawing its same way back. And I say the same thing, and I usually reference the same track, my home, Monterey, WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna Seca. Love it. Grew up there. It's my everything. It is heartbreaking to see IndyCar show up and the place to be by and large empty. Same for IMSA. And having been at those tracks, at that track, just as this one example, when it was overflowing with people, like it wasn't standing room only, but Lord, grandstands were packed, hills were packed, motorhomes everywhere. Like, it was a huge happening. To have been there for those, seen it with my own eyes, and then come back and see that, oh man, yeah, there's more people than there were last year, but it's still a tiny audience. I come away with the same exact thing I've been saying for years. If you're trying to level up, you can't go to places that make you look small and unimportant. Can't. Just can't. Thermal, it's an interesting topic here. So why does IndyCar go there instead of some other places? I think we can make things really simple and plain by saying because they're being paid to go there. And I don't know what the sanction fee is, but in general, numbers between $1 million, $1.5 million, $2 million tend to be what I hear. Sometimes see published if it's a county-based agreement that has to be shared publicly in order to host IndyCar, put on an IndyCar race. IndyCar demands a 7-figure appearance fee. That fee depends, changes from track to track, but this is a case of, to pad the calendar, take it out to 17 races, I apologize. This is a case where Thermal pays for IndyCar to be there. If you look at the math, offering 5,000 tickets, the general admission, meaning the lowest price ticket, is $475. There are others, obviously, you start getting to the VIP tickets, and they certainly cost more, but the hope is you multiply that almost $500 per ticket times 5,000, you can get up to over $2 million. I don't know exactly how close to 5,000 have been sold, but close, we're told. But nonetheless, a lot of this is to recoup sanction fees. But why would IndyCar go to a place like Thermal? To your exact point, very valid. It's going to look small and unimportant because for those who don't know the inside story of it being a super private club, and this is their first ever professional points paying race, and they're allowing fans for the second time ever. Last year was the first time. This year's the second. For those who don't know all that and aren't particularly interested in it, they're going to watch a practice or qualifying or the race and say, I don't know what this is, but nobody seems to care. Reality, the folks who were there, I would argue, care the most and or have the financial capability of being there. So not being there doesn't mean you don't love IndyCar more than anyone else. Just saying that I'm aware of a number of fans, some of them friends, who are spending a lot of money, aren't necessarily wealthy folks, but want to support IndyCar, saved up, making the trip, making that flight, getting the rental car, getting a hotel. This is a significant financial outlay to be there, and are doing it. I'm sure some of it's because of the allure. Hey, very exclusive, and you get some cool amenities while you're there. But I'm aware of a decent amount of folks bought tickets coming out because they want to support IndyCar and make sure that as close to, if not exactly 5,000 people there, max capacity as set by the track, are there to be seen. But it still comes back to this basic point of how many of those can you have? Home track here at Monterey hasn't been putting up much of an audience. Portland, right? Love that place. Been going there forever. Crowd's been pretty light the last couple of years. I don't know how many of those events you can hold per year while still selling folks on, hey, we're increasing and everything's better and ratings are up and prosperity is here. Even if all those things are true, the visual test, there's no spin you can put on that. There's no other numbers and metrics. You can say, hey, but the television audience for here is amazing. You go, great. And what did that big audience happen to see? At least the folks in this region or this track or this place did not feel that this product is worth consuming. And so very few showed up. So just to close on this, I'm with you. And yeah, I've heard, others have heard, maybe I can get a more direct answer this weekend, but I've heard this is going to be it for thermal as a race destination. Ed Joyce, you got a question following up on another topic here, so I'll stop short on the answer, but I don't want to lose Monterey, but if it gets traded for another event that has more people and makes IndyCar look more successful, let's do it. Again, hate to lose my local race, but in the best interest of IndyCar, I want what's best for IndyCar to happen. Portland, again, run down the list. I don't care where we go. If you look out at the stands and go, did they forget to open up the gates to let people in? It's not a sustainable thing without your reputation taking a big hit, and reputations can't take big hits when you're trying to rebuild and improve. Ed Joyce, say if thermal does get pushed off the points paying portion of the IndyCar schedule, would it make sense to move it back to an annual spring training event? That's indeed what it was. First time in 2022? Say something like the Roar before the 24, IndyCar could put it somewhere between the Super Bowl and St. Pete for TV, try and broadcast Sunday from there, do a bit of a season preview, maybe a pit stop competition, maybe a sprint race or knockout qualifying or something. So thermal is that rare commodity that can be used in winter, and I'd hate to see it dropped completely. What do you think? I'm with you. That's where my head's been at this whole time. At least listening to race engineers, most of them have told me, I've asked the direct question, does this place give you valuable information you can use at another track? Because it's the only reason to test at wherever you're going. If you're going to a track where you're racing, great. You're learning exact everything you need for that circuit. But if not, like a Sebring in the short course, mimics a lot of what you see on a street course. So that's why teams go there so often. So cool. What do you get from a thermal? According to a lot of the race engineers, not all. Some disagree. Some said no. There are some valuable things we can take from here and apply it elsewhere. But the majority I've spoken with have said, what we learn here pretty much applies here. And that, for the most part, is where it stops. So if we're talking about a spring training event that truly helps teams to prepare for the season, gives them something that is valuable to apply to another track, that's the only part that's a little bit of a hard argument, Ed. Knowing how track testing, not sim, but actual on-track testing is such a premium these days, and there's so few test dates. It's one of the other arguments that I've heard from folks against going there. We don't get many of these, so burning a day or two or whatever it is here and not being able to take much that helps elsewhere, that stings. I'd rather go somewhere where it truly helps. To your point, in terms of places that IndyCar can go early in the year when it tends to be really cold in a lot of places in the U.S., Palm Springs is a really nice destination to consider. But there are indeed a growing number of private-ish, club-ish type, really nice, well-done circuits in southwestern U.S., New Mexico, Arizona, southern Nevada, I believe. There's a growing numbers. Not like there's 20 of them, but there's at least 2 or 3 now. Can't tell you if they're all fully built and ready to go, but I know at least 1 or 2 that are in the midst or being developed. But the routine we used to do back in the day was we would go to Phoenix Oval, right? 1 mile oval, super long IndyCar history there. We'd go test there. And then we'd pack up and drive over to Firebird. I don't know, hour and a half away, whatever it was, road course. And we'd test there. And then we'd pack up and then maybe go back to Phoenix. You had, within a relatively short distance, almost any time of the year, but especially during winter, postseason, end of year, early months of the new year, go to the Southwest where, by and large, is going to be nice and warm, and you'd get your short oval testing in, you get your road course testing, and you'd bounce back and forth. And depending upon the exact time, you might sneak out to another track somewhere there, Southern California, who knows, but regionally, it's that, or there's not a lot else that comes to mind. There's obviously Sebring, love Sebring. It's just not a place for spring training to be held. It's been used for spring training multiple times. I think I was there for all of them. It's 2 hours away from anything. Most people, if we're talking media, TV outlet, you name it, it's remote enough to where nobody really wants to make the trek or the effort. So while it fits perfectly and you tend to have very nice weather there in Florida, it's just a bit in the boonies and it looks like hell. The the short course is just out in the middle of nowhere. Aesthetically, it is not pretty. So anyways, something in the Southwest definitely would stand out, Ed. And yeah, thermal's just a little bit weird in terms of value at other tracks. Sam Anadiotis, how you doing, Sam? It's Marshall with the NXT series being carried on Fox Sports 1. Will IndyCar and Penske start to sell race title sponsors for those NXT races? Or is that not a major focus for the series at this point? Oh, I'm sure they would love to. I mean, we're going to an event this weekend at Thermal, IndyCar race. It's the Thermal Club IndyCar Grand Prix. Not presented by whatever, company A, B, or C, or the big company Grand Prix of Thermal. It's just an unsponsored race. So I have no doubt that IndyCar Penske Entertainment would love to sell title sponsors for NXT races. Would just suggest that since the series has been streaming only for a little while now, and it's just coming back to cable/broadcast type places where it might be seen by more folks, probably need to give that just a little bit of time to soak in. It's not as if it's a new series that Penske would need to tell every sponsor about, but I think got to see what kind of ratings they can stack up and at least justify selling title sponsor for an NXT race. At least on streaming, we know the numbers were so tiny, you could not go to a sponsor and justify asking for anything more than a couple of grand, probably. Chris Kolewick, how you doing? In your interview with Will Buxton, you mentioned that IndyCar's parity and level of talented drivers is what drew him to the series and is a selling point over F1 in America. He says, since IndyCar is in direct competition with F1 and NASCAR here, what are some out-of-the-box ideas that can differentiate them from their competition? Chris says, my wacky idea is a hybrid oval/road course race, the Indy Grand Prix. One lap's on the oval, next lap's on the road course, and alternating throughout the race. I'm sure for safety's sake, this is a terrible and unsafe idea. It is. But you got to try things to get the eyeballs, right? Let me know your thoughts. I don't think we're at a point where we need to do gimmicky stuff to get people to watch. I think, assuming Thermal is not a total snooze fest, which it could be, St. Pete snoozer, for sure. We'll continue to thank our guy Stingray Rob for putting up a heck of a fight late in the race to make things a little bit spicy. But other than that, yeah, it wasn't super memorable. We put together a few boring races, then yeah, maybe we need to start talking about how do we spice things up. doing this kind of stuff, at least as it lands in my silly brain, it reeks of desperation. We have a product that just isn't worth consuming on its own. So what kind of trickery and fun and whatnot can we throw in to try and make it worth following? Here's something, and I think I'm mentioning this before I'm writing about it, but plan been floated. It's been floated to drivers before. It's not brand new, but coming out of St. Pete, there's an idea resurfaced, we could say, within IndyCar. They've spoken to Firestone about this as well, and that is, hey, so we have this tire consumption rule. Says for the road and street courses where we use 2 compounds, alternates, soft, primaries, hard, have to do a minimum of 2 laps on each compound. It's a rule, got to do it. If you watch St. Pete, came out of there probably saying, hey, we need to beef up this rule a little bit, because being able to do 2 laps under caution at the start of the race on the unfavored alternates and get off those. Well, is that really what the rule is meant to do? Different topic. But concept that was floated was ultimately tabled for this weekend was, well, instead of saying you got to do minimum 2 laps on primaries in the race and then minimum 2 laps on a set of alternates in the race, what if we required you to do alternates twice, right? Got to do 2 laps on 2 different sets of alternates. Effectively, if the alternates, which we think are going to be something you want to get off of immediately because of that tire shredding attribute of the thermal layout, primaries we expect to be the absolute favored tire. Well, I don't know if there are a lot of fans of this idea in the paddock, but there was an idea, there was a concept of saying, hey, at thermal, we're going to mandate, actually got to run the alternates twice in the race, and was waiting to get the final answer on that. That was supposed to happen in a decision on Tuesday. Actually I reached out on Monday about it, and was waiting to get to Tuesday to get the answer, and it ended up getting a text saying, on Monday, end of the day, saying, yeah, not going to happen. So sticking with the well-known pre-existing plan, 2 laps primary, 2 laps alternate, everything satisfied, instead of doubling up on alternates. But that was an idea, and it could, who knows? Could that get formalized for an upcoming race here? I'd say it's very possible. The thing to keep in mind, probably should have mentioned this up front, why my brain is not always an ally. Every race we're going to leading up to Mid-Ohio, and I think we moved around 1 or 2 things, so I might be slightly wrong, but effectively the majority of the races we're going to for the first half of the season, these are all first time visits with hybrid Indy cars, with that extra 105 pounds installed in the car. Just a little sidebar for those who like numbers or care. Know that during the St. Pete broadcast at some point in time, one of the sessions, good folks at Fox Sports put up a nice little animated graphic showing that with the hybridization here, there's been 132 pounds added to the car. True in terms of the energy recovery system itself, but with the series trying to counteract some of that weight by moving from aluminum componentry with the bell housing, and the heaviest part that they changed from aluminum to magnesium, the transmission case, they've taken some weight off of that. So the actual increase in weight with that magnesium offset applied is 105 pounds compared to last year. And this is actually in the rule book. The cars in road and street, and I believe all the oval configurations as well, up 105 pounds. But the point being, we got a heavier car than Thermal's ever seen. St. Pete, Long Beach, Barber, Indy Road Course, Indy 500, Detroit, and so on. Road America. So Tire-wise, we're going to see some interesting new things, learn about some interesting new things, but we're also having to consider that where some of the races that I just mentioned run last year minus hybridization, put on really good races, we're now having to place a suspicious eye on all these races that are now going off for the first time as hybrid road and street course races in particular, to say, are these good? Are these entertaining? Is the quality of racing there? Is that added weight something that is conspiring against the quality? Or is it just simply the timing, St. Pete, for example, of that first lap crash that allowed the big strategy change on tires that made the race a bit of a snoozer? We'll see what happens at Thermal. We know tires are certainly going to be the star of this event. Where does that extra 105 pounds of the back of the car, the shift in static and dynamic weight distribution, where do all these things fit in terms of good race, bad race, or meh race? So this is why, whether it is traced back to the extra weight or a number of factors, is there a need to try and think about, hey, we're going to require double alternate usage or whatever it is to spice up the show? Single race so far, not enough data for us to say, oh, fix it, change it, improve it, get a couple more races in, then maybe we start talking about one lap on the Speedway Oval and the next lap on the Speedway Road Course. So love the creativity nonetheless, Chris. I just wouldn't want to have to duck as a corner worker because everybody would probably run into each other. Jason Hoffman, how you doing, Jason? Says, with a date announced for the Arlington GP next year, seems to help fill the vacant spots in the early race schedule. Any other potential surprises for next year's schedule? I don't know. I am weak in this area just because I haven't asked a lot of folks, or any of the folks that I should, about this recently. Also says, and wouldn't the Arlington GP be a good location to showcase a new chassis or announce new OEMs, etc.? Unless they do that at this year's Indy 500. The 500, I'm expecting there to be some form of formal announcement about the upcoming future new car formula and otherwise. It's the biggest event. More spotlights, more cameras, more interest placed there than any other place. So I'd say that would be it for sure. If they had something next year to unveil at Arlington, that'd be pretty cool too. So love the thinking on that for sure. Good old Hickey 93. How you doing? It says, with that Arlington GP date announced, does it jeopardize everyone's favorite venue from next year's schedule due to date equity? That being Thermal. Date equity. I love that phrase. I don't, but no formal confirmation of anything. I just know that in speaking with drivers, speaking with team owners or similar, and just from what I hear from others, continue to hear that Thermal won't be on the racing calendar next year. Here's the thing. We don't know what Sunday is going to bring us. A lot of everything that I mentioned so far, and y'all know, is all based on, well, we're trying to forecast from what we saw in 2024. This might be the most badass race we've ever seen. And mainly because of risers and fallers, and who knows, folks getting in the way, and maybe there's a Stingray Rob 2.0 thing here towards the end of the race. It doesn't have to be Stingray, it could be anybody, but we don't know. What if this race is amazing? Like, truly, what if we're like, that's badass? Do you want that to go away? I just don't know. So, based on speculation, it sure sounds like this is it. Wouldn't it be amazing, though, if Sunday was just phenomenal and we were all giving ourselves high fives over it? Everything else I've said before about the not a great look, need to race in places where you look big and important. A great motor race solves a lot of problems. Lynn _ IndyCar. Any word on Mexico City for 2026? Not yet. It is another thing that I need to check in on this weekend. Basically, I need to get smart on more of next year's calendar movements and whatnot. So hopefully for next week's episode, or maybe one after, I will have more than a lot of I just don't know. Luke Entrip says, sounds like Colton Herta is not a lock for F1 next year. Will we see Alex Palou as an Andretti driver on the F1 grid? I mean, Colton doesn't have a super license, so that's a pretty significant thing. Whether he wants to go or the team wants him to go, yeah, can't drive one of them cars without a super license. Alex Palou, I mean, I think he'd be phenomenal there, but I don't know if that is something that is possible contractually. If I'm a brand new Formula One team, and I think that a Colton Herta, Alex Palou, whomever could be an amazing driver, they are, we know that, but could be an amazing Formula One driver. Maybe I'm looking at things differently, but the last thing I would want to do as a brand new team, unless the driver is bringing trillions of dollars to fund it all, is to put Formula One rookies in either of the seats. So when I say Formula One rookie, I don't just mean new to Formula One, but like truly, you haven't been on these tracks. Like this whole thing is going to be massively new for you. Even if it's a crazy talent like Colton or Alex. Giant learning curve. It's not going to be ignored. It is not going to be something that is somehow eradicated because they're great drivers. Where there's a little bit of a asterisk is, but what if it's a veteran Formula 2 driver who's really good, a Jack Crawford, for example, right? Kid has never done a Formula 1 race, totally get it, but has he raced in Australia and Austria and here and there and been at the majority of the F1 circuits, has pretty deep knowledge from doing it once or twice or 3 or 4 times. So yes, F1's a different car. Certainly new things to learn about the track from inside of an F1 car, but not showing up having to learn effectively almost every track for the first time. So if I'm Andretti Global Cadillac F1, I am saying we're hiring a veteran, and maybe we're going with a younger, newer driver. Maybe someone who's straight out of F2, but it's someone who's just that, straight out of F2, who knows the majority of the places we're going. That's my approach. So if Colton had a super license, maybe this conversation becomes a bit easier. Even Palou, I think it'd be amazing for him. I know he has huge F1 passion. Is this something he wants to go chase right now? It feels like that page might have been turned. Is Alex indeed the best driver that Andretti could get? I don't know if that's the case. So, I'll just say this. Love to see it for either of them. If I was a team principal, I would not bring either of them, at least in year one. I'd let us as a team figure ourselves out, make a lot of mistakes. Here's what's guaranteed. Brand new guy, even if he's a 3-time or 4-time IndyCar champ or Colton or whomever, you're going to suck in year one. For all the reasons I've just mentioned, plus the team is brand new and is going to suck. Going to be the last place team or very close to last place almost everywhere. And what is going to happen? Sponsors, fans, everybody going to be saying a lot of really harsh things. I know that people saying harsh things doesn't mean you can't or shouldn't do something, but they're already going to be under fire, and knowing that they're a massive automotive corporation, huge pressure on them to succeed, even in year one. I can't think of any reason to exacerbate that by bringing in somebody where you go, yep, we are truly tossing you in at the deep end. All you got to do is look at the Formula 2 champions or runner-ups that have made it into F1 in recent years. Some of them struggled mightily, and they've been plugged into that F1 pipeline for years, if not doing lots of testing. Again, know all the circuits. Even some of them take a little while to fully mature and show that they're ready to go. So, yeah, I hope not for their sake, because it would not be pretty, and I just wouldn't want to see them get put through that. Lisa, you're up next. You say, with Toby Sari announced Ray Letterman landing in as a reserve driver, what happened with Yuri Vips? You know, it's a wonderful question. Despite not mentioning it in their story, and then reaching out after I filed the story mentioning, I wrote by mistake, I guess, that Toby is RLL's first reserve, development driver. And the team reached out afterwards to say, you're wrong. Please change that. That honor belongs to Yuri Vips, who is still in that role. And that was news to me that Yuri was still in that role. So I learned that. I guess maybe I think of Yuri a little bit differently in that this is a person who has raced for the team multiple times. And so, whereas Toby, to my knowledge, has not. And so, from what I know, who knows? Maybe he could be put in a fourth car at some point this year. I don't know. But I believe Toby, for now, is truly just not an on-track driver for the team, whereas Yuri has certainly been that. So, anyways, I don't know. Seems like there's some minutia here, but the team wanted me to know that, according to them, Toby was not the first, and that Yuri is still there in that role. So I don't know what that means. A 3-car IndyCar team with 2 people doing or potentially doing the same thing. I don't know. But yeah, that's the answer that I was given. Brett Keys, see, how much effect will the new spec fuel meter have on races? It will significantly alter mileage for teams during fuel save races. Shouldn't change anything there, Brett. What this is doing is giving teams more accurate fuel information. So the way it's been done for a super long time, even back in my day, we would take the information off of the fuel rails, how much fuel is getting sent into the motor, and use that to try and extrapolate what kind of fuel mileage we were getting, how much fuel is being consumed. Unlike your road car, there's no fuel sensor sitting in the fuel tank, a little float valve or whatever that is actually giving real-time information as to how much fuel is sitting in the tank. This is all done outside the tank and measuring fuel flow and, again, trying to get an accurate number based on what's coming out of the tank going into the motor. Always been a slight discrepancy, right? So you've got an 18.5 gallon fuel tank. Through the sensors and whatnot, it's saying that you've consumed, just make up a number, 18.0 gallons. So at the end of the race, there should be exactly half a gallon in the tank. Well, you pump out and you find out, who knows, instead of 0.5 gallons, maybe there's 0.6. So you weren't using, it's only a 10th difference, but you weren't using as much as you thought. Or maybe it's 0.4. Oh man, we're actually burning a little bit more fuel than what we thought. You apply correction values to that. You do that after practice. You do it quite a bit before the race, where you pump out at the end of the session based on the computers, the telemetry, the data. It's telling you, well, this is how much should be in the tank. You then pump the tank out till it's absolutely dry. You measure that amount, and then you compare, and you go, oh, well, it's exact. They match. Perfect. No correction factor need to be applied to your fuel numbers. Or it's off a little bit. All right. Multiply by 1.03 or whatever it might be to get the number coming across the data to perfectly match what is truly being consumed. The decision here from both auto manufacturers was, okay, why don't we just go to a spec fuel meter? Forget trying to do math and multiplication and correction factors off of fuel rails and blah, blah, blah. Let's just go to a standardized flow sensor and we'll just go off that number. And that number should be really super accurate. What they use on the cars is actually the same fuel flow meter used in F1, in WEC, in IMSA. So it's a well-known, super proven sensor. So with all that said, what Penske found, for example, at St. Petersburg, Joseph, in mentioning after the race, and his race engineer Luke Mason telling me that they thought they had the fuel correction number slightly off, which led to some belief that they were wrong on their fuel numbers, and that's why Joseph had to go into super fuel saving. There are other reasons for that. It was actually a refuel issue with the refueling itself within the tank, but forget all that. What they learned, and what Luke said, was we didn't think the numbers coming off were correct off this new fuel flow sensor, spec fuel flow sensor, but it was. So just want to give you that long bit of background here, Brett, to understand that the old method always had the potential for being slightly off. Therefore, you might be a little bit more safe when it came to calling pit strategy, fuel strategy, and whatnot. With what I'm hearing, at least coming through this very first race with the spec fuel flow sensors, sounds like they can trust that number. And assuming that this stays that way, shouldn't alter anything. Other than teams being able to fully trust the numbers that they're getting off the car, to know that if it says you've got 2.3 gallons left, they know they got 2.3. And if the track is 1.9 miles long, well, you better get in before you complete this lap, because it ain't going to go one more. Why don't we close with our pal from Holland, Peter Nutt, man from the Netherlands. MP, warm regards to your wife and cats. Is there any more information you could share in the graphics on the international feed? Wrote about this earlier this week, Peter. Fox tells me they believe they can and will have the cockpit aero screen graphic with all the performance data and such. So that there were some glitches that prevented that from transferring into the international feed, but they are confident that will be resolved, and you should see that starting on Friday. If not, send me a DM or whatever. Tell me if it's happening or not. And for the rest of you listening outside the U.S., please let me know. The pointers, which they use, the GPS-based pointers where they call out a car and not just give you their name or car number ahead or whatever, but often give you some sort of performance data, mile per hour they're doing or whatever. I'm told that that's probably going to take a little bit longer. Don't know why. Reached out and asked to interview somebody. I think I got back like a 1 or 2 sentence response via email. So I don't have details as to what the glitches happen to be, why it's going to take longer. Just sharing what I was told, that should have the cockpit graphic in place. The rest of the bells and whistles, it'll be interesting to see what makes it through. And hopefully y'all will tell me what you are or aren't seeing, or send me some screen captures or something on whatever social platform you like. And we'll do a follow-up if there are any more issues there. All right, y'all. That's about all I got. Appreciate you. Look forward to seeing some of you here at Thermal. I know that my friends at the Elite IndyCar Facebook group are going to be doing a meetup. Friend Don Cusick from the Cusick Motorsports Drawing Reinbold team. We'll be doing some cool stuff there. I don't know if I'm going to get a chance to go to the meetup itself. I think it happens right after qualifying, but going to try and churn out some more interesting stuff this weekend. Do more with my phone in terms of short video, small videos after each session, any little interesting things I can throw up. At marshall.pruitt on Instagram is where all these things go first, and then try and post them on my at Marshall Pruitt Twitter/X profile. And yeah, see as much as I can do there, along with farting out some word stories. So appreciate y'all. Thanks to Jerry. Thanks to our friends at the Justice Brothers, TorontoMotorsports.com, and the Sports Car Championship. I can't even speak. Sports Car Championship Canada, presented by Michelin. That sure sounded professional. Thanks, y'all. Speak to y'all next week.